a way to cap off the Daytona 500 for the 75th anniversary of NASCAR. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he is a three-time Cup winner. Most importantly, is a 2023 Daytona 500 champion. But a lot happened to get to where we are today. Let's first talk about the racing itself. We're going to get an overall picture before we dive into it. Overall, it was a very exciting race, very intense race. I overall personally love this form of super speedway racing. It's intense, it's exciting, but it's not overly chaotic like what we saw in the later years of the Gen 6 car from I think 2019 to 2021. We saw some very intense super speedway racing, but it was borderline out of control. This one, although no surprise to see wrecks happening late in the race, it was more controlled chaos, but still very entertaining. And throughout the entire race, it was dominated by the Fords, specifically the RFK drivers of Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher. Now, Keselowski won stage 1, Chastain won stage 2, but again, it was the Fords that dominated the majority of the race. Stage 1 was all Fords, and you had to sprinkle in some Toyotas and Chevys in the mix. Stage 2, same thing, Keselowski leads, but then you had the SHR cars of Ryan Preece and Kevin Harvick now up towards the front. But one thing that we saw in Daytona was bumping, pushing and shoving. Sometimes they can go wrong, and it did, especially if you were a Ford driver. Sometimes if you shoved a Chevy or a Toyota driver, you could send them around. That's what happened with 13 to go in stage 2. Kevin Harvick gave a bump to Tyler Reddick, setting him out of control into Truex. Blaney comes back up, and Reddick and Blaney slams the outside wall. Jones gets collected, as well as Chase Elliott and Daniel Suarez. A total of 8 cars were involved in that crash. Stage 3 at the beginning was kind of like last year's 500, much more calm. And it was kind of, it was like the moment, the eye before the storm. It was very calm, but you can tell things are starting to pick up. After the final round of pit stops, we had another crash involving a lot of Ford drivers. Just after pit stops were finishing up, a stack up occurs in turns 1 and 2. Ryan Preece sideways involving Truex, Harvick, Briscoe, Gibbs, McDowell. Jimmy Johnson got some damage on the right side of his car, which was really interesting because, again, it took out a lot of Ford drivers, which shuffled the field a lot and allowed for some new contenders to come in the mix, like AJ Allmendinger and RCR teammates Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon, who weren't much of a factor virtually the entire race. With 12 laps to go, Allmendinger goes to the lead and Logano gets shuffled out of line, but then very quickly things can happen. One shuffle later with 9 laps to go, Allmendinger gets sent to the back, and RFK teammates Keselowski and Buescher back up in front 1 and 2, and this time you had RCR teammates Busch and Dillon 3rd and 4th. Now, of course, with Daytona, you can't wait to the last lap, especially with how fast the RFK cars were. You had to go. 3 laps to go, they did. Busch and Dillon make their move to the high lane to get by the RFK drivers of Keselowski and Buescher, and now RCR is in the catbird seat until a caution flies. Coming to 2 laps to go, Daniel Suarez spins off for turn number 4, either by himself or after contact with Jimmy Johnson. That sends us into NASCAR overtime. And in a unique move, they said that it was for the best of RCR. Instead of lining up nose to tail, they end up side by side. Busch up top, Dillon on the inside. NASCAR overtime, Busch comes down in front of Dillon, allowing open room for 2015 champion Joey Logano. Logano gets a good shove from Stenhouse, goes to the lead before Ricky Stenhouse slices down to the inside with help from Larson to take the lead. As soon as that happened, they crash behind them for another caution. Byron sends a shot too hard to Dillon, turns him around, creating the big one. Johnson involved, as well as Gregson, Cindric, Gilliland, as a total of 13 cars. That was the biggest crash of the entire race were involved in that accident. Sends us into NASCAR overtime part 2. Part 2 begins. You have Stenhouse up top, Kyle Larson on the inside with Logano and Bell in the second row. Logano gives a good shove to Stenhouse at first, but coming out for turn number 2, it remained even between the 2 drivers of Larson and Bell and Logano and Stenhouse. But then here comes Busch and Bowman. Busch gives a good shot to Stenhouse, or to Logano, gives a good shot to Stenhouse, pushes Stenhouse to the lead, and the inside lane now has no help. Logano and Stenhouse, they go to the front. Stenhouse stays up top. Larson gets a good run on the inside with help from Bell. Stenhouse comes down low to block, and then you got even Bubba Wallace on the outside in the mix, pushing the A car of Busch, who pushes Logano, and it seems as though that Stenhouse was a sin duck because he was so far out. Logano goes to the top lane. Here comes Larson to the middle a very interesting move, goes to the middle, stalls out, Logano up top, Stenhouse down low, and then Travis Pastrana gets a tap from Eric Almirola, sends him into Larson, creating a hellacious accident. Keselowski and Bubba Wallace both took huge shots to the outside wall, and when it was all said and done, when the caution came out, it was Stenhouse Jr. that was out in front ahead of Joey Logano, and Stenhouse Jr. wins for the third time in the Cup Series, but most importantly is a Daytona 500 champion. He breaks home a 199 race winless streak. His last win came right here at Daytona in the summer of 2017, and he led, I think, around 10 laps, but like I said, goes to victory lane. This is JTG's second career win. The last time they went to victory lane was back in 2014 with AJ Allmendinger at Watkins Glen, but overall, a chaotic way to end the Daytona 500. Now, Pastrana, Larson, Bubba, those drivers and Keselowski that took huge hits to the outside wall, they were all okay. It looked pretty bad, but they were fortunately, they were able to either come back to pit road or got out of their cars under their own power. But let's take a look at the results. Stenhouse wins, Logano second, Bell third, Buescher fourth, Bowman a top 5 finish for him, Allmendinger sixth, Suarez rebounds for seventh, Ryan Blaney eighth. But again, he was involved in that crash with 13 to go in stage 2. His car looked like a mess, and he still finished in the top 10 in 8th place. 9th was Ross Chastain and Riley Herbst in his first Daytona 500 in 10th. Travis Pastrana, even though he was involved in that crash, he still comes home with a top 12 finish in the 11th place. Hey, even though he was involved in the crash, it was awesome to see Travis Pastrana in the race and come home with a top 12 finish. 12th was Kevin Harvick in his final 500 start. Zane Smith, Cody Ware, and Corey LaJoie, a couple underdogs, round out the top 15. Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, and Bubba Wallace rounds out the top 20. A couple other notables, you have Eric Almirola, Brad Keselowski, 21st, 22nd, Cindric, 23rd. The rookies, Gregson and Gibbs, 24th and 25th. Michael McDowell, 28th. Connor Daly, 29th. Jimmy Johnson involved in that crash, finishes 31st. Dillon, 33rd. Byron, 34th. Briscoe and teammate Priest, 35th, 36th. Eric Jones, Chase Elliott, Tyler Reddick, and Ty Dillon. They rounded the field. Ty Dillon was out way early in the race due to an engine issue. All right, so thoughts on the race. First of all, let's talk about the winner, Stenhouse Jr. There are a lot of people that are saying that, the last 3 Daytona 500s have been won by underdogs. This isn't a great way to show show who's a good plate racer or shows who's the best. And while at first it may make sense, Stenhouse Jr., even though I have been very critical of Stenhouse Jr. of how he races on the super speedways, he is really good. He either wrecks or he wins. He's won on those plate races in the past. He won Talladega and Daytona in 2017. We know how good Stenhouse wins on the plate tracks. The reason why he's perceived as an underdog is because of the team he drives for, JTG. If he were to drive for Childress or Hendrick or Gibbs, people will not consider him an underdog on the plate tracks. It's just because the team that he's driving for, they don't look at him as a potential possible winner. But I'm not surprised Stenhouse won this race. He is a really good plate racer, and he either wrecks or he wins. So I'm not surprised that he won. And it's kind of interesting. Even after all the chaos, I know there are always some topics and discussions about, is the Daytona 500 legit? Even after all of the carnage, the top 2 drivers that finished first and second are all fantastic on plate races. Stenhouse Jr., Logano in second. At the end of the day, yes, it does take luck to do well, but you also need to be very skillful and have a great car if you want to be in contention to win these races. And Stenhouse, he had the skill and he also had a little bit of luck to get the job done. But let's talk about the race itself. Again, it was one of the more cleaner Daytona 500s. Again, we didn't see anything in terms of crashing until 13 laps to go in stage 2 involving Reddick and Blaney. And then after that, you had to wait till I think 30 to go for the next crash with Priest, Harvick, and those drivers. And then of course that crash with 10 in the first NASCAR overtime. But I thought it was a relatively clean 500. Again, I really like this super speedway package. It's fun, exciting, intense, but it's not too chaotic. I thought it was a really great race. There was a lot of strategy involved. You saw the manufacturer working together, but worked in a very interesting way with the Fords, and then you saw the Chevys and Toyota start to team up a little bit to gang up on the Fords. The moves with this new super speedway package have to be more methodical, more strategic to make a pass cleanly, rather than in the previous package, it was really just balls to the wall, get a great push and just do whatever you want with it. These moves, because the runs are a lot slower, you have to be more methodical, more strategic with your moves. I really, really like this super speedway package, and I thought it was a really great race. Let's talk about the broadcasts. Okay, there's gonna be a lot of talk about this one. I thought this was a commercial 500 because it seemed as though for the first two stages there was a caution, or I should say a commercial, I think it was every 10 minutes or 6 laps. I think it was something like that. Every 10 minutes or is the other way out. Every 10 laps or 6 minutes. I'm telling you, if you go back and watch the Daytona 500 from Fox's point of view, set up a timer. I swear, every 6 or so minutes they go to commercial, and it was annoying. Now, someone did look up online and compare the 2022 500 commercials to the 2007 500 commercials, and they were relatively the same. Maybe it's TikTok that is literally lowering our attention spans. It is actually doing it. It's lowering our attention spans that make us more impatient. But I swear, I feel like there were double the amount of commercials this year than last year. Maybe it's because it was the first race and we haven't dealt with this in a while. But I was relatively annoyed with the commercials, and a lot of people were. There was even trending the commercial 500. It was even trending on social media. That's how bad it was. So I think it was genuinely just there was way too many commercials this year around. Now, it is a contract year. Maybe Fox is cashing out because maybe the next TV contract has something involved that prohibits the amount of commercials aired during a race, but it doesn't help for ratings. It doesn't help keeping people involved when you have commercials every 10 minutes. By the way, Fox, you air commercials, full screen commercials under caution and side-by-side commercials under green. Not the other way around. Just an FYI. Yeah, again, overall, I think Stenhouse was very deserving of the win. But man, I need to go back to the TV deal. I need to go back to this because I hope in 2025, I think that's when the new TV deal starts, there's some type of rotation for the Daytona 500 because, again, I can't get over these commercials, man, because, oh my God, like, it's just, there were times where I swear they had a commercial for a long time, came back, 2 laps later goes back to commercial. I mean, there was that 13 laps to go in stage 2 crash with Reddick and Blaney. That happened just as Fox went side by side. And they didn't even have the decency to get out of side by side to talk about the race. You had to wait another minute or so until it came back to actual race coverage and see what happened. There was apparently a link on NASCAR Reddit that showed a live stream of the race without any commercials. I think I need to get on that because it was really annoying. And I hope that in 2025, the new TV deal limits the amount of commercials someone can put on, and hope that NBC can take over the 500 because with Fox, the booth was great. They did miss some things. There were some things that happened in the race that they missed. I thought Stewart, Boyer, and Joy, I think they did a great job, but just the production of Fox and its usual antics, I miss NBC already. We have to wait till July for them. But I overall love this race. I love this 500. I wish, my boy Bubba, was able to do something with that. It nearly was able to escape that final crash, but unfortunately was clipped. Jimmy Johnson, wow, let me tell you, for a 7-time champion, even though he's been out of the sport for 2 years, it was like he never lost it. I think he finished in 5th place in stage number 1. He showed some muscle. He had a fast car, and it was like he never left. Was in contention, was up front, was able to get himself out of trouble until that crash in NASCAR overtime. But yeah, he was making some real nice moves, and we get to see him another 9 more times this year. Not at a super speedway, which is going to be very interesting to see. What can he do if he races a 1.5 miles? What can he do there? Very interesting to see how he performs there. RFK, no surprise, they ran extremely well on the super speedways. Also, Christopher Bell, he is emerging. I think as a really solid super speedway racer. Performed very well, finished in 3rd place, kept his nose clean. I was surprised Denny Hamlin wasn't a factor virtually all race long. I was surprised. He had moments where he was near the front, but really wasn't a factor. I was quite surprised to see how little we saw the 11 car show up. Kyle Larson, even though he has very little luck on the super speedways, that was his best super speedway performance that I've seen from him. Was in the mix virtually all race long, or always up towards the front, led some laps, remained competitive, and was in the mix up until that crash in the second NASCAR overtime. So he was there, was in it. That was his best running that I've seen from the 5 car in ever. Alex Bowman quietly finished in the top 10 after starting on pole. And yeah, I mean, no surprise to see the Fords, they ran extremely well. Surprising to see the Toyotas, you know, they ran good, but I was just surprised again to see like the drivers like Denny Hamlin, how little he showed up. Bubba Wallace unfortunately couldn't really do much since he got put on the wall early in the race after a tap from Truex from his boss Denny Hamlin. That bent the toe link, the rear toe link, and kind of took him out of contention for a win. But was still in position to have at least a good finish. But yeah, very exciting, very entertained by this race. The commercials were annoying, but other than that, I love this Daytona 500. I give this an 8.5 out of 10. I really liked it. But actually, maybe 8.5, maybe 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed this 500. Just wish we could have made it to the end. If it weren't for that first NASCAR overtime crash, I would enjoy this race a lot more. That kind of hindered it a little bit, but other than that, I thought this was a great Daytona 500. What are your thoughts on the race? Did you like it? Did you not? Tell me in the comment section down below. NASCAR is back. I'm excited. Next weekend, we'll head to the final 2-mile racetrack of Auto Club Speedway. Excited for that. Until next time, congratulations to Ricky Stenhouse Jr., your 2023 Daytona 500 champion.